Hey everybody, it's Gregg Bendian here at the ProgCast. And today I'm very excited to have a guest who is so accomplished in so many different areas of music and such an interesting amalgam of different approaches to music. She's a bass player and a music conceptualist, and I'm very happy to welcome to the ProgCast Mohini Dey. Hi, Mohini.
Hi.
Welcome. So I'm very curious about your musical beginnings. I had the pleasure of hearing you on Cruise to the Edge back
Oh,
in
you did.
May. Yeah, when I was hosting some of the events and got to hear you with the great drummer Marco Minnemann
Right.
and got heard you getting into some serious conical stuff there and some really great jamming. So
Yeah, Marco and I go long back. He and I met. I actually don't remember how we met, but I do remember I met him like at least I would say 5 or 6 years ago, and this was I think through Guthrie Govan because I was a part of the Guthrie Govan tour, and maybe Guthrie might have spoken about me to Marco, or maybe Marco and I played on some client's album, and then the client connected us or something like that. I'm not really sure, but the moment we met each other, we fell in love with each other's playing, and it felt like we kind of speak the same language when it comes to music, and we understood each other, and nothing like bass and drums being on the same page, the rhythm section being so tight. I just loved our sound together, and I had never heard anybody play the drums like he did. Of course I had played with a lot of drummers before him, but he has a unique style and he has a unique approach, unlike other drummers who are equally unique and different, but he just has such a fusion sound. I had worked with Dave Wacko, I had worked with, um, uh, some like different artists have different sound altogether. So it was just mind blowing how he could pick up things so easily and so fast. Even though I come from a different culture and my upbringing and my journey is totally different, and the musical influences on his story and my story are like completely different. Like he grew up listening to rock and roll, rock music. And I grew up listening to like a lot of Carnatic music and jazz rock, and got into prog rock much later. But yeah, so it's like, totally different influences and inspirations and idols, but still we were able to sound beautiful when playing together. How did I start playing bass? I started playing bass because of my dad. I come from a musical background. My mom and dad are both musicians. My mom sings, my dad's a bass player. I have a younger sister, she plays guitar. So you can tell like music really floats in the house, and it was important, it was always very important to our family. And my dad always wanted me and my sister to be associated with music somehow. And so he would teach us music as kids growing up. I remember taking lessons from dad, and so did my sister. At the age of 3, I started taking lessons. I seriously started, pursuing it when I was 7, and I started professionally working when I was 9.
where were you growing up?
Sorry?
Where were you growing up?
I grew up in Mumbai, India. So, um, I mean, I used to go to studios and venues that my dad used to play in or record in. I would bunk school days and just tag along with dad, because I loved the musical environment very much, and I loved the spotlight. Every time I would go along with him, my dad would ask me to play the bass, and every time I would play the bass, everybody would be like, "Oh wow, this is so cool, this and that," and I really enjoyed that as a kid. And the more I enjoyed it, the more I started spending time with my bass. and the better I got, and I think that was like my first initial interest. I think I enjoyed the spotlight more than playing the bass at first. And then I realized I have a lot of interest for fashion. So I applied for a fashion college secretly during my 10th board exams. And I had 3 golden opportunities. One was that I got a full scholarship from Berklee College of Music, and I got selected in the fashion college. Second and third, I got called to play in A.R. Rahman's band. And I chose A.R. Rahman, and I played with him for 8.5 years for his, live shows and a couple of his movies, did some session work in and out. And my life just took off from there, to be honest. It just opened many doors. Playing with him opened a lot of doors. A lot of people started to know me, and a lot of people started to call me and wanted to play with me and hired me for their albums, hired me for their movies. I played on a lot of jingles, like Flipkart, Titan, all these, like Bacardi. I started doing a lot of promotional work as well. So yeah, my life sort of, with that one decision being made, my life kind of changed, and everything that came to me after that, I took it as a challenge and just kept going forward. And then after a couple of years of playing professionally in the industry, I had a choice, I don't want to do this project, maybe I should do this one. Initially I had no choice. I was taking everything, and I wasn't very picky, but I would say the past 4 or 5 years I've been very picky with my projects. I don't play on anything and everything because honestly I don't have the time. I just am too busy, and I just like doing things on my in my own time, and I don't like deadlines very much. So I just like to chill and do music, because music is not something that just it's not gonna, it's oh, in an hour you gotta finish this song. Okay, yes, I will finish the song, but then it's is it gonna be good? Yeah, maybe you'll like it, but my personal standards are very high, and I wouldn't let it go out. So that's just me. So I like to take my own time, and I am a perfectionist when it comes to this stuff. And I like to, perfect everything and triple check, sometimes 10 times check before it goes out, But yeah, life has been great so far. I am, how many years has it been since I've been professionally working? I think about 17 and a half or 18 years. And it's been beautiful. I love just meeting new musicians and playing with different artists, and that's one of the reasons I'm here. Apart from visiting my in-laws, I'm going to LA to meet a lot of musicians, and I probably will be playing with a lot of artists this week, and I'm really excited about that. So that's really fun with our job. You can meet so many different types of people and musicians, and life is just unlimited. You never know what comes to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if you had any idea of what was going to be your musical area when you're starting off. I think you're 3 and 4 years old, studying with your dad, who's a bass player. What kind of music is your dad playing at that point?
At that point, my dad was playing in a lot of Bollywood bands. He was also playing with Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. He was playing with a lot of great singers in India. And I grew up listening to a lot of vocal music and a lot of Hindustani classical music, because my mom sings Hindustani classical. But my mom was also a dancer. So I grew up seeing her dance. She has 4 years diploma in Bharatnatyam. So, I used to take dance lessons from her as a kid growing up. So my childhood was very fusion, I would say. Nothing was one way, it was everything. I used to wake up at 5:30 a.m. in the morning and go to school, and then come back at noon, and then have lunch, shower, and then do my school homework. And then my private tutor would come home and teach me for 2.5, 3 hours. And then after she goes, I would have to do her homework. And then I would practice bass. My dad would give me my bass lessons, then have dinner, and then go to sleep, and then all over again every day. So it was, it was a strict childhood, I will say. Like, I grew up in a very strict household. My mother tongue is Bengali, and Bengalis tend to have a very strict household. That's how we were raised. But I became very rebellious, and at 17, I moved out. And then I just I wanted to live on my own terms. And, I guess every kid goes through like their own share of struggles and own share of like clashes with their family. And I went through mine, and life turned out great.
But isn't that unusual in your culture that a girl would leave and do
Oh,
her own thing?
Oh, I'm just giving a short story. I don't want to get into like the specifics of it,
Yeah.
but yeah, absolutely. In an Indian culture, like now it's probably okay, but like in those days, in my time when I was 17, I had to fight. I had to fight with my dad and mom, and it was chaos. It was really chaotic in the house, and they hated me for my decision, but now they're very proud of me, that I did make that decision. Now they understand. So, with time, you become wiser, and parents also learn a thing or two, with generations going by. And it's fast, and change is hard for everybody. But with time, everything heals.
Sure. And you were gigging pretty early. What kind of gigs were you doing to start off?
I was playing like Friday, Saturday nights in clubs where my age was not even allowed, but I would just go there to play and then out. So I was only allowed to do the gigs and not just come to like see the shows or anything. But after playing like 5-6 times, the owner kind of knew me, so I was an exception, I guess, and I was allowed after a point. But yeah, after that, on the side, I was traveling a lot to the south and the north of India, where Tamil Nadu is and where like Assam is. And I got introduced to South Indian, music, and a lot of the Carnatic gharanas and ragas, and played with like a lot of exotic instruments like kanjira, morsing, ghatam, tabla. So I grew up playing with all these percussive instruments a lot, and that was very fascinating to me. I wanted to sound like a percussive instrument on the bass, and that's where I guess all the konakol and the slap, all the stuff that I do on my bass comes from, because I wanted to sound like them. And it's still very fascinating to me. I remember when I was like 13 or 14, I had my like first jam session, and I realized like bass has such a frequency that it can get it sometimes gets hidden in the band, if you're not powerful enough, or if your tone is not a certain type, then your sound will not cut through. So I studied a lot, and I analyzed, and just was looking for my sound, and I would practice a lot and fiddle around with like a lot of pickups and just different woods, and just see like what works with my technique. And I'm very technical with my playing, so I had to figure out just different types of tonal modulations and things that would work for my style of playing. So yeah, I spent a lot of time with my instrument and with amplifiers and stuff, and I would also make a lot of videos, and I would post online and stuff. And my first video that went viral was with Gergo Borlai, a Hungarian drummer, and it was called Day by Day. And when I heard that song, he sent it to me. When I heard that song, I didn't know I could play it, but because it was so fast. And then when I started playing on it and I was recording on it, it felt very natural. I know a lot of people like ask me like, where do you get your speed from? How are you flowing so fast? I never worked on speed, to be honest. Like it just happened, I was always working on saving my stamina and working on not being sloppy, because I hate sloppy playing. I hear a lot of bass players and they play a lot of things, but it's not clean enough. So for me, like, clarity is the most important thing, and time in a bass player is the most important thing for me. And so, I would work on those things, and it just like happened. I never paid too much attention, and I just kept playing and listening to, keeping myself open to listening to different types of music, and just, staying open-minded. And the more you're open to hearing different types of music, the more it influences you, and the more your sound changes over time. So if you hear me when I was like 13, 14, 15, and now versus now, you will hear a big difference.
Sure. And I'm curious what bass players you were checking out when you started expanding your bass concept. Who were you interested in?
Yeah, so I would listen to like a lot of Weather Report, Jaco Pastorius. I would listen to Abraham Laborio, Marcus Miller, John Patitucci, Billy Sheehan, Stuart Ham, so many just different types of bass players, Michael Mandarin, Gary Willis from Tribal Tech, and like I would listen to a lot of like different albums as well. At that time, I didn't have like like a DVD player at that time. Initially, I had like a cassette player, so like I would rewind and learn it the hard way. It would take a long time to do that, and then finally we had like a DVD player, and then that was a little better, but still like it was hard. Yeah. And then came the computer, which came much later. That was like a whole different world, and that was like amazing. But yeah, I grew up listening to a lot of those bass players, and as well as drummers like Dennis Chambers, Carter Buford, Vinnie Colaiuta, Virgil Donati, Kirk Covington, Narada Michael Walden, like a lot of their albums as well. So yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah, the breakthrough of Hendrix into the guitar world, I often think of Jaco as a similar figure in the bass world, where
Yeah.
it's exploded now, open to be equal to every other instrument. It's not just about bass as a support instrument. And
Yeah.
he starts off by showing us Donna Lee on the bass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was the first one to show that bass can not only be an accompanying instrument, but also a solo instrument.
And a virtuosic solo instrument too, and a sound synthesizer, really.
Yeah, absolutely. He was like the first one to, expand the vocabulary of bass.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that Donna Lee recording when I was watching your video of Coltrane's Countdown, and you did a transcription of that solo and just flew right through it. And I'm thinking, man, that's not easy. But you've clearly done a lot of transcription and a lot of shedding on these kinds of solos.
There's a funny story behind that Coltrane video. My husband, this was when he had just gotten married, and he came home and we were just talking, and he said he was listening to Coltrane's music, and I heard the song, and that was my first time hearing Countdown. And Mark said, why don't you do like a video, like a short video on it? I think it would blow people's mind. I was like, really? He was like, yeah. I was like, okay, cool. So the very next day, I started learning that solo. And then I did a video the very next day, and it was like, it just blew up in no time.
So you just worked on that solo for a day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I was ready to do it the same night, but I just wanted it to be like perfect, like nails. So like I hate wasting time. I'm the kind of person like who likes to move on very fast. I don't like to waste a single second. So that day I was really tired after doing that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it tomorrow after I, set up the lights and like cameras, and I want to do it like in one go. So yeah, that was probably like my second take the following day. Yeah.
Amazing. So who are the bass players that impress you now? Because now there are so many young bass players that are coming up, you have huge audiences listening to people like Thundercat, and the bass now becoming just a much more out front instrument. Do you see that happening?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was happening even before Thundercat. I think he's incredible, but like, Hadrian Farad is one of the best in today's time, I would say, like he may not be as famous as Thundercat, but he was doing all the things like that nobody was doing, his jazz vocabulary is just mind blowing,
I saw him with John McLaughlin the first time he came over here from Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, when I heard Hadrian, I was like, wow, this is incredible. It's so inspiring to see somebody play like that. And even Victor Wooten, the first time I heard Victor Wooten, he's not from now, but growing up, I listened to a lot of Victor Wooten also. And like he was one of the first guys to play the bass like he does, like drumming on the bass almost, So he's a big inspiration to me. And in today's time, if I had to name a few bass players that I love and enjoy listening to, it would be, of course, Adrian Farad and Junior Brackenham. There are some rock bass players that I enjoy listening to as well, like Brian Beller, like Ricky Bonazzo. There's this other guy, very funky bass player called Vincent Garcia. I mean, there are a lot of bass players now, like there are some amazing bass players out there that are doing some great things. And I am so happy to be living in this time,
Yeah, it's wide open now. It's good to see that the electric bass, it can expand into being the lead instrument or being a support instrument or being a harmonic instrument or being a sound generator. I'm curious how you feel about processing and electronics.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I use a lot of pedals myself. I only got into it like I would say 3 or 4 years ago. But I absolutely enjoy it. I have like 3 big pedal boards at the moment that I tour with for different bands. I think it's an extension of your sound. I think it's they're toys, you can use them whenever you want. I used to be the kind of person who would go direct to my head amp and straight out, just love my bass sound and still do, and I still love soloing just direct, but there are some cool sounds that you cannot neglect and just avoid because it adds a lot, like this one I have in front of me right now. This is something that I use a lot called Brainwaves Pitch Shifter, and such a cute color in light pink. It has like almost everything you need. It's just amazing. It has wham, it has detuning. You can add like different voicings to your note. You can have like triads. It's incredible. And I use this a lot for soloing. And then like this one is another great pedal for if you want to sound like a keyboard playing sub bass, almost like a Moog sub bass. OC2 by Boss is amazing. TC makes some amazing pedals. I use a lot of the TC electronic pedals called Sabina. That gives you like almost like a Hammond sound. And then Muga Fuga, of course, the ring modulator. I use that a lot during soloing. There are so many out there. It's endless. The sounds, yeah, it's only gonna keep getting better. And I still prefer individual pedals than like a single processor. I just think I don't know, there's some sound to it. I think it's more clean And I I just feel like it gives you more of that natural sound. With the processor, it does change your tone a little bit, which I don't like personally. And it's just more old school, I guess.
It's tone coloration, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. It's just adding on your sound, it's not but some processors do change your tone sometimes, unless it's bypass. But again, sometimes that can fiddle and manipulate your tone as well. So there are some processors that are good out there that won't manipulate your sound, but then most of them do. So I just prefer, and it's just like fun to have a pedal board and you see the sounds and you just like load in the sound. So sometimes I will have another OC2 just to have like a dialed in sound, and I will use a different setting on that OC2, and I will press that when I want it. And I will use this one when I want it for a specific song or something. So I don't mind having multiple numbers of the same pedal.
Mohini, I've been following Indian music for much of my life. I was very fortunate to have a dad who was really open to music, and so at a very early age, I got to see the Stan Kenton Orchestra, and then, a couple of years after that, my dad took me to see Ravi Shankar with Ala Raka at a local college. I was lucky enough to see Shakti the first time they played in New York City in Central Park. First time we were exposed to Zakir. First time we were exposed to Shankar and Viku. And from that moment on, I've always noticed that Indian classical musicians, if you want to call them that, there's a streak of very progressive, very forward-looking, very interested in bringing together different musical cultures. And I wondered if that was something that inspired you as a young person, seeing guys like Zakir doing all the different projects that they do and just being a world musician.
I was too young. I didn't really think that deep, I didn't look at genres. I just looked at everything as music. And people like Zakir Hussain, John McLaughlin, bands like Mahavishnu Orchestra are great bands and great musicians. For me, they were some of the pioneers, doing that sort of music. And for me, it was just inspiring. And my father always taught me to be respectful and to see everything, to not differentiate between different things, but to look at it as one, so for me, everything was just music, and still is today. I don't categorize bands. I don't categorize musicians. For me, everybody is a musician, and we're all human beings, and we have a different voice, yes. And these are tags like, okay, this music is prog rock, or this music is metal, and it sounds a certain way. Absolutely. But if I am called to play in a metal band, I play like me, you know? Same like you saw me on Cruise to the Edge. I'm not a rock bass player. That was one of my first times playing like in a rock band, heavy rock band, Before that, I had played in a Japanese band, which was pop rock, sort of like similar, but not super similar because it was Japanese music and it was pop rock. Whereas Randy McStein and Marco Minnemann, it was more fusion rock, So I was playing like me. Like I didn't change myself to fit in or anything like that, So that's why I don't categorize different musicians and music, because when I play in a different setting, I'm still playing like me. I'm not changing anything to make myself sound like somebody, or make myself sound like a funk or a jazz or a prog rock or a metal player, So yeah, that's my way of looking at music,
But isn't that also something that came down from your dad and your mom and having such a wide range of interests in the household?
Yeah, but having said that, I was too young to even understand anything, Now I understand because I'm 26 and I've lived little bit of my life, but I was too young to understand those specifics and get that deep in life, you know. I was just doing what I was being told to do. My father had a plan and I was living by that plan until I became rebellious and then wanted to live my life on my own terms, you know. Had my own dreams and wanted to do those, achieve those goals and dreams. And since then, I've been on my own. And now when I see people living their life and doing what they want to do and respecting art and respecting independent music, it brings me joy, you know. I have so many students who take lessons from me and they ask me like, how do I find my voice, you know? How do I sound good, you know? How do I sound original? And I always say that, you know, every person has their own voice already, but you just have to finesse it. The more you spend time with your instrument, be it vocal or be it your instrument, you just have to spend more time with it and you will find it because it's there. You just have to finesse it and make it like it's one body part and it's not separate. Like my bass is not a separate body part at this moment for me. When I pick up the bass, it becomes like my body part. I feel like I am walking, you know? I feel like I'm talking through my instrument, which is a part of me, you know? So yeah, I didn't think too much, but I always was fascinated and interested in learning, and I still am, and I'm still a kid in the music world. You know, I'm always open to learning new things, and I still get fascinated and mind blown by a lot of things. And I think that's the best way to live your life, because otherwise you'll feel like, oh, you're just great, and you're like famous, and people know you. You're a great bass player, and you've played with so and so, and you've done so much work and played on so many albums. Now what? You know? So I just like to relax and not get stressed, because sometimes when there's so much happening, you can get stressed and you can get like you start feeling like there's a burden on you, and you start feeling like you have a responsibility because you are representing your country now, and people are like, oh, you're the pride of India, you know. Now there's this huge responsibility on my shoulders, like I have to always win, you know, I cannot fail, you know, stuff like that. But I always say like it's okay to be okay. Like it's great that I turned out to be a good bass player and a good musician, and I enjoy my, you know, job. Great. But it's okay to be okay, you know? It's totally fine to be, as long as you're enjoying your work, you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you working on these days?
I just finished my album, so it's currently being mixed and mastered. So hopefully it'll come out this coming year, which I'm really excited about. And we also finished another album on the side, which is called Mamoji, with my husband Mark. He wrote all the songs, and our drummer friend Gino Banks from Mumbai, India, and he played drums. I played bass, and it's incredible. Like the way the album sounds right now, I just cannot wait for the people to hear it, because it's something that people haven't heard. It's very different, and it's something that is not out there yet. We did an India tour, I think 6 or 7 city India tour, and then we did Mamoji's show in Romania. We also did one show recently, I'm forgetting, somewhere in Europe. But yeah, so we tested out with different audiences. We wanted to play the music live before we released the album, and like out of 100% of the venues, we sold out 80% of the venues, and it was incredible. So I can't wait for people to hear this album. We are very excited to release it. Mixing and mastering is done, and it's going to be out end of December. So super excited about that. And there's an album that I played on a couple of months ago of Darwin. and Simon Phillips is playing drums, and he's the producer for it. We recorded everything live in Zurich. So I was there for like a month, and we recorded 12 songs where Simon and I recorded together live in the studio. And that is coming out. And I mean, there's so many albums that have come out already as well. Like this guitar player's album called Jan Rivera. If you haven't checked that out, check it out. Marco Minnemann is playing drums, Jordan Rudess on keys, myself on bass. There are some other musicians as well that are featured on this album. So yeah, lots of great albums. Lots of guitar players actually have put out a lot of albums this year that shockingly Marco and I are the rhythm section for it. Like 3 or 4 albums where Marco and I are playing.
And who's on your record?
On my record, we have Narada Michael Weldon, we have Vinny Colaiuta, we have Gorgo Borlai, we have Guthrie Govan, we have Bumblefoot, we have Mark on horns, we have Gino Banks, and I am, also doing a lot of like the Knuckle stuff as well. I hope I'm not missing out anything. But yeah, there are like 8 or 9 songs on it, and I'm super excited to release my album as well. My album is very, fusion, jazz fusion. Yeah, I think this has been on hold for quite some time now. People have been wanting me to release my album, and this is going to be my debut album, so I'm really excited.
Does it have a title, and where can people find it?
Oh, well, the title is Meat Eater. Yeah, so that's me, of course. I only eat meat, so that's why the album's name is called Meat Eater.
You're the opposite of vegetarian?
Yes, that's right. I'm a carnivore, and I'm very proud.
Wow, okay. So where can people find your music, Mohini? What's the best place for people to look for your stuff?
YouTube, Instagram. I'm a lot more active on Instagram. I post a lot of videos of whatever I'm doing. And YouTube, mainly music, but Instagram, if you want to get a sneak peek into my behind the scenes of, my life. Yeah, YouTube, if you want to just hear music and a little bit of my life, I would say. But you'll find only one song as of now called Can You Feel Me, which was my single that I released a couple of years ago. But my album is coming out next year, so stay tuned for that. But meanwhile, you guys can check out Can You Feel Me, which has Jordan Rudess, Steve Vai, myself on vocals, so it's a vocal song, on bass as well, and Gino Banks on drums, and Mark Hartsach on the horns.
Well, I look forward to hearing that and the full album. And I just want to say, Mohini Dey, thank you. You're amazing, and your music is fascinating, and I hope more people will check it out. Everybody, this has been the ProgCast. Thank you to Mohini Dey for talking to me about music and turning me on to a whole other world of music. So
thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, and we'll definitely be looking forward to hearing some new stuff from you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next time.